So I'm sure you've seen on Pinterest or Instagram that basically every braid these days has been stretched out, softened up, loosened up, hairs are falling out. That's kind of the look. You know, it's really lived in, it's really soft, and it doesn't look like a braid maybe that's fit for like a little girl. It looks undone, and that's hair I like to do. That's something you'll probably hear in every tutorial. You know, loosen it up a little bit, make it look lived in. I like doing bridal hair, and the updos are like perfect and everything's put together, but the hair that's most realistic for my day-to-day and for most women is a little bit undone and soft. So I want to show you how to get the look of the stretched out braid. This can be done on a fishtail braid or a French braid. The braid I'll be doing is a Dutch braid, and you basically have to do a Dutch braid, Dutch fishtail or Dutch French braid, if you want the look of a stretched out braid. With a traditional French braid, the braid part sort of lives under the hair, and all of the hair you're adding in goes on top. So the braid is kind of hidden in a sense, but that's the look of a French braid. With a Dutch braid, the braid's on top, so every section of hair that you're gonna add in will go under. This will make sense as I go. But anyway, you could do a fishtail or a braid. I'm gonna do a Dutch braid today to show you just kind of simply how to do it and how to stretch it out from side to side. The absolute biggest, most important thing that you need to do before you start is add a lot of texture to your hair. The complaint I hear over and over again is that, you know, the hair slips out of the braid, or you get random layers spiking out or something like that. If you add a lot, like twice as much probably than you're gonna tend to do of texture, whether it's in a texture spray or a texture powder, you won't have that issue as much. Having a little bend in your hair helps, because the bend of curled hair is gonna follow the shape of a braid easier than straight hair. So even if your hair's straight, but you wanna wear a braid right in front, throw like a big curl right around that front section and then braid it, and you won't have the spikes of straight hair sticking out. So that's my little tip for you. But as far as texture goes, I've said it 1,000 times, Amika's Undone Texture Spray is layerable, it's great. This is maybe lighter. The other one I'm gonna talk about is Bumbles Dry Spun Finish. This leaves, this is a really effective texture spray. I mean, they both are, but this will leave much more residue in a good way in your hair and make it like the perfect, somewhat grippy but dry texture. So if you need a ton of help with your braids sliding or falling apart, Dry Spun Finish is your friend. This is also just great to spray in your hair if you want like a beachy loose look. Amika is good and layerable for adding texture as well. The last option for adding texture would be to use a texture powder. Redken's Powder Grip 03 is one of my faves. So you just tap this into the section you're working on. You can tap this all around your roots and then run your fingers back and forth, and it'll pop your roots up off your scalp. Grits is trapped out of the room because he likes to rub against the tripod and knock the camera over. And that's kind of a problem. So if you hear a meow in the background, he's gonna be fine. I'm just gonna be another minute. Anyway, I'm gonna use Bumbles Dry Spun Finish just to add plenty of texture around this front section. So I've already sprayed my hair with hairspray just because I was wearing it down for something else. But if you haven't, and this is just the first product you're putting in your hair, that's fine too. You just want to really cover that whole section, whether it's the front section or wherever you're braiding, with a great deal of texture. You'll be able to feel immediately that you've added texture to it, which is good. That's what you want. If you can't feel it in there, put more in. So we're just doing a Dutch braid. Start as close to your part as you can. And while this may feel like we're starting really small, you're gonna stretch it out anyway, so don't worry about it looking too tight. Divide it into 3. And then each section you take is going to go under the middle. Once you've started each section on their own, you're going to pick up hair from the outer part and go under the middle. So now I'll pick up some hair in front, go right under that middle section. So you can see it's starting to take shape. Make sure you aren't pulling the braid toward your face because you'll get a little bubble right at the hairline. So follow the direction of your hairline going down toward the ear. And now that I've picked up my last section of hair right by my temple, I'm leaving everything else down here out of the braid. So I'm just going to continue braiding a few more inches. Okay, so at this point, there's no sense in braiding further down the hair because you need this extra space to stretch everything else back out. So if you're nervous about dropping it, put a clear elastic in where your fingers are holding, slide it down, and then work with all of that hair, and you won't run the risk of dropping the braid entirely. What I'm gonna do is go ahead and take my duckbill clip out so I'm ready to pin this braid once I've stretched it, and then just move my fingers down and hold it down here, and then work this straight section of hair up by stretching out the braid as I go. Okay, so quite simply, all you wanna do is use your fingers to space the braid apart. It's easier to work from the bottom and add more hair in as you go up. You want to focus on pulling the outer sections of the hair so you get a nice wide and flat braid. See how much looser this is getting? That's what you want. And if the worst happens and you drop it or it just gets way too loose, you can do it again. You saw how quick it was. And frankly, might be good practice. So you can see that even though we started kind of tight at the top, because we're stretching it, it doesn't matter, and it's gonna look pretty much the same width from the very top all the way down to the bottom. So you can see what a big difference that makes. It's a really wide, loose braid now. You could even keep going if you wanted to. So all I'm gonna do to pin it in place is sort of pull a little bit of my hair back and pin it above and slightly behind my ear, and then let this back hair sort of fall over it. So, back hair, it doesn't sound good. The hair in the back sort of fall over the pins so it looks like you can't see how it's secured in the hair, but it'll be nice and tight and won't go anywhere. And then after you've pinned it, you can still kind of pull as long as your fingers are on those pins and separate it even more if you want to do that. So like I said, once the braid is pinned, and as long as it's nice and secure, go through and just keep stretching out those outer sections until you get it sort of the width that you want. So you can see it's really nothing more than sort of stretching out the braid that you put in. That's kind of all it comes down to. So if you were to have fishtailed wherever, whether it's along your hairline or in the back or something, all you do is add a little bit more straight hair at the end of the section you're working on, back up into the braid and stretch the outer parts of it one by one, and then finish with a nice mist of hairspray. Since it's a looser style, you want to make sure those bobby pins are tucked in there right so it'll hold it, and use enough hairspray to make sure it doesn't continue to slide out. Like I've said, that texture spray is going to be key in making sure it doesn't completely slip out, but finishing with a good bit of hairspray will keep everything exactly where you put it. As always, Kenra Volume 25 is my favorite for that because it's going to be one of the strongest holds I've ever used, but it doesn't feel like spray wet glue, and you can layer it as well. So the further away you hold the can, the softer the finish is going to be. If you want to make sure it does not go anywhere, hold the can like 6 or 8 inches from what you're spraying. So a really simple braid, a really simple technique. Use that with any braid that you're working on. You could even stretch out a traditional braid that you didn't even sort of French the first part of it. Anything you do braid-wise, fishtail braid, French braid, Dutch braid, stretched out is just going to be that really soft modern look. So I always love seeing your renditions of what I've showed here on these tutorials. So please tag your hair photos with hashtag smallthingshair. And I can see it on Instagram. You can even tweet them to me because I check that hashtag as well. So I love to see those. So I can't wait to see them, and I hope this was helpful and makes you feel a little bit more confident about getting like that modern stretched out braid look. And even those of you with fine hair, if you use the texture spray beforehand, you're gonna feel like, oh my gosh, my braid is so tight. But as soon as you go back in and add that extra hair and stretch out those outer parts, you're gonna get the look of a much thicker, wider braid.